Hello Fronstretch viewers and readers. My name is Christopher DeHarde and I'm doing your post-race conversation after the Chevrolet Detroit Grand Prix. This is going to be a slightly different formatted video than what you're used to because I can't find my tripod and I don't have an actual physical copy of the race results in my hands. I have my laptop here in front of me that I will do all the information from for this video. So Kyle Kirkwood led 48 laps to win his second race of the season. I know, shocker, Alex Blow didn't actually win this time because he's won everything else this year except for the Long Beach Grand Prix and today. We'll get into that later on though. But Kyle Kirkwood won the race. Santino Ferrucci finished second. Colton Herta finished third. It was the first time since 2020, and I believe it was Mid-Ohio where Colton Herta won that day, where we've had an all US born driver podium. So Kirkwood won, Ferrucci second. Santino actually led in the race, but Kirkwood got around him. Ferrucci was actually up front on a bit of an off-sequence strategy. I'll get into that a little bit later on. Fourth place was Will Power. Fifth place was Kiffin Simpson. Great job by Kiffin Simpson. It was his first ever IndyCar Top 5 finish. You can read about his race on my sidebar at frontstretch.com, and also with the video I posted up on Twitter and also at Fronstretch Open Wheel on their YouTube page, which subscribe to that if you haven't. It actually is really good for us if you do. Anyway, so there was an interesting situation late in the race. Kiffin Simpson, Santino Ferrucci, and Marcus Armstrong all pitted on lap 65, I want to say it was. And then the very next lap, Callum Ilott pits, and his left front tire was not properly secured to the car. I'm not sure if it was just a bad wheel nut or if it was someone that made a mistake, but regardless, he went off into turn number one after his pit stop, and the car just didn't really turn all that well. Ilott hits the barrier, the left front tire just pops right off, and Stingray Robb, who I did another video with, if you watch that on YouTube or on Twitter, went off by as the wheel went off to the left-hand side. Now, there was a full course yellow that was called because of that. And because of the full course yellow rules, IndyCar closes up the pits before any driver can go to the pits. They want to pack up the field before they open up the pits. And because of that, Armstrong, Ferrucci, and Simpson were able to move to the front of the field. Kiffin Simpson was second ahead of Marcus Armstrong. Both of them were chasing Santino Ferrucci as the race went back to green, but then there was a yellow shortly thereafter. If my memory is correct, it was, I'm looking at it right here, yes, Louis Foster and Felix Rosenqvist had an incident. We'll talk about that in a bit, but at the end of the day, it just resulted in another full course yellow, which saved more fuel so that drivers could run harder at the end of the race. It was just unfortunate that what happened, but we'll get into the cautions here in a little bit. Going back through the field a little bit more, Marcus Armstrong finished 6th, good result for him. Powder Award 7th, Christian Lundgaard 8th. Spoke to Lundgaard, got the video on the Fronstretch Open Wheel YouTube page. Joseph Newgarden 9th, he ran on the alternate compound tires at the end of the race. And then Alexander Rossi in 10th. It was a difficult race for him, according to the Ed Carpenter Racing press release. He said, good fight back to get another top 10 finish on the street circuit. Scott Dixon 11th. He ran the longest opening stint of the race, 39 laps. Scott McLaughlin 12th. He had a bit of a downer. So let's start talking about the yellows right now. Marcus Armstrong, he went into the tire barrier trying to avoid Felix Rosenqvist, who spun at turn 8. That was the race's first full course yellow. The second full course yellow, Devlin DeFrancesco lost a rear tire off of his car, the number 30 Rail Letterman Lanigan car, and then unfortunately he spun because of that, and the tire, it was just, you can't have a loose tire like that on the course. The third, oh yeah, it wasn't actually a caution. My actual apologies about that. So Scott McLaughlin's rough race. He had one situation that he really screwed up with. He got a stop and go penalty for avoidable contact. Well, what happened? Nolan Siegel was running in front of him, and Scott McLaughlin hit the brakes too late and hit Nolan, turned him into the wall. Nolan had to pit underneath the full course yellow for taking emergency service. His car was damaged, so it's unfortunate, but you know, it is what it is. And then McLaughlin had to get a stop and go penalty for that. So he served his penalty, and then oh, that just reminded me also, Siegel, his penalty was served after the caution for Devlin DeFrancesco's loose wheel. Talked about Ilott briefly, and then after the incident with Ilott, there was another full course yellow that was well, there were two more actually, but the fourth of those 5 yellows was actually where the major consequence of the race took place. Alex Palou into the tire barrier at turn 1. His race was effectively over. Actually, it was over because he didn't go back out on track at that point. David Malukas misjudges braking point, tapped the back of Palou's car, sent Palou off into the turn 1 barrier. Palou asked if the safety team could bring the car back out. Fortunately, they couldn't do it, and plus I think the car was damaged beyond a reasonable repair amount could be done before the end of the race, so unfortunately that was it for him. But fortunate for the rest of the other drivers, because he's got a 102-point lead on Kirkwood, which would have been a lot less had he not had a technical infringement after the Indy 500. Anyway, so the final caution of the race. This is what I really wanted to talk about, because it was just there were a lot of consequences that took place because of this. Louis Foster's right front suspension failed as he was heading to turn number 3. It pitched his car, the number 45 rail Letterman Lanigan Racing entry, into the tire barrier, and then he had no control. He had Felix Rosenqvist. Rosenqvist bumped his knee pretty significantly. He was in a bit of pain, but both drivers were seen and released from the IndyCar medical unit. They both talked about it afterwards. I know Bob Pocker spoke with Felix afterwards to make sure he was fine, which is good. I mean, it was just, sounded like he was in pain, so it was good that he was able to actually talk afterwards, and that the drivers have a week off before they go to Gateway. But there was a significant amount of tire barrier damage and wall damage too, so race control called for a red flag to fix the damage to the barriers, and whether it was tire or concrete. And then the race resumed, and then Santino, actually have the lap chart here, let me pull that up here. Santino was already third at that point, because before the previous yellow, Kyle Kirkwood got around him, and then Will Power got around him actually on the restart of the final restart of the race. So Santino was back to third, then Santino got around Will, and then Colton got around Will as well at the same time, well, not the same time, but like within 2 or 3 corners, because once you're offline in IndyCar, your tires get really dirty. So Santino got to second, Will Power fell down to 4th, Colton Herta got to 3rd, and that's where they stayed for the rest of the race. Simpson fell back to 5th, and then Marcus Armstrong 6th, as we mentioned earlier. So to go back through the race results again, Scott McLaughlin was 12th, Marcus Ericsson 13th, 14th, David Malukas. He started 2nd, but he had a avoidable contact penalty, so he had to do a stop and go late in the race, so that kind of dropped him down the order. Stingray Rob 15th, chaotic weekend for him. They had to do a lot of work on the car to adjust the setup after it was really nowhere on Friday. You can see the video of that interview over on the Fronstretch Open Wheel YouTube page. After Stingray Rob is Indy 500 pole sitter Robert Schwartzman. He was 16th, Connor Daly 17th, Jacob Abel 18th. I did a video interview with Jacob. This was his best IndyCar result, and he had a bit of floor damage as well, a bit of damage to the diffuser at the back of the car, which it was very significant. You lose a lot of downforce by not having all of the diffuser on the back of the car. After Jacob Abel was Nolan Siegel. He was 2 laps down, the very first car not on the lead lap of the race. Graham Rahal in 20th. He was actually doing really, really well in the race, and then at, I believe it was his first pit stop, the right rear wheel nut would not come off. It was like Valtteri Bottas at Monaco that one year with the Mercedes pit stop with the right front tire not coming off. They had to use a hammer to actually beat the wheel nut off of the tire, or the rim rather, and it just took so much time. Graham's race was effectively over at that point. Then Felix Rosenqvist 21st ahead of Louis Foster in 22nd. Devin DiFrancesco 23rd. He had some suspension, or might have been suspension damage earlier, but that might have caused the right rear tire to come off. Not sure how that happened really. They never really talked about that on the broadcast. Christian Rasmussen 24th. The Ed Carpenter Racing release said that there were suspected electrical issues, which is why he came into the pits early, which is a shame for him because he was running pretty well earlier on in the race. Alex Palou 25th, Callum Ilott 26th after his contact with the wall. Rinus VK finishing shotgun on the field in 27th. He had a an engine issue. I don't think it was something with the actual engine itself. I heard later on it might have been an exhaust system issue, which if it's not the actual engine itself, that's good because you can keep that engine in for until it gets mileaged out. Bad luck for Renus because it was his first weekend working with Michael Cannon after his beginning part of the season gardening leave after leaving Prema earlier this season. But anyway, a brief look at the IndyCar points. Alex Palou has 311 points. He's up on, says here, Pato O'Ward is second, and then Kyle Kirkwood in third. I also need to get that looked at real quick because Pato finished seventh, and I think I saw that Kirkwood might have been second, but anyway, it doesn't matter because Palou is still out in front by a large margin. It's going to take a couple races for them to get past him. Anyway, so overall the weekend, was there carnage? Yes. Was there a little bit more than what we might have expected? A little bit. But at the end of the day, what matters most is the fact that all the drivers are unhurt and all the teams now have one weekend off after being on the road for so many races and other pieces of track activity to now finally go back to home base, take stock of what you have, maybe go do a little bit of testing if you want, and just take a little bit of a break. Think about it. These crews have been on the roads because you've had Barber the first weekend of May, Indy Grand Prix, Indy 500 qualifying, Indy 500, Detroit. Now you're off for a little bit. So take that time to just rest up, relax, and watch the Pacers win the NBA Finals, hopefully. Because remember, a lot of teams are based in Indiana, of course. So that being said, I don't want to ramble on too much longer because there's a lot of things that we need to get done here. My name is Christopher DeHarde. This is your post-race conversation. Enjoy yourselves, support racing, and we'll see you in the next time. Bye for now.
Steven Stump of Fronstretch.com here. Come back for more great racing videos, and if you like us, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.